Welcome to my podcast, The Government Mechanic. I am your host, Dr. Lynn Sandra Khan, and I am the Government Mechanic. This is episode 6, and the second of 4 episodes about farming, ranching, fishing, and America's food supply. And my very special guest is Sherry Bunting, journalist extraordinaire and an independent agriculture writer. She is an expert on farm and food, and we're going to talk about why is it illegal to serve whole milk in America's public schools. But first, hey Sherry, how's,
Hey.
Lan- how's Lancaster, Pennsylvania?
Well, good. We've had a lot of sunny days and no rain. I'd say we'd have the driest fall on record. And unfortunately, there are some fires happening one county over and into New Jersey. But other than that, good harvest. Just hoping for some rain.
Good, good, good. All right, let me give you a proper introduction and ask my first question.
Okay.
Sherry Bunting is an investigative reporter in the areas of farming and food. She has been writing since 1981, basically started in high school and college when she was also working on dairy farms, milking and feeding cows, sometimes as a relief milker called in at the last moment. I know her, she's been writing in Farm Shine newsletter, the Farm Shine newsletter since 2004, and that's how I know her. And in fact, I have in my hand a stack of Farm Shine magazines with articles that I have cut out, and oh my, they're all written by Sherry Bunting. So my first question is about the grassroots effort to bring whole milk back into schools. Yes, our listeners, it is illegal. It is against the law to serve whole milk to our kids in American schools. It's okay to serve skim milk, which tastes like chalk, but it is not okay to serve whole, healthy, fresh, nutrient dense whole milk.
Right.
Sherry, how did this happen and what's been the impact on the farming community?
Well, first of all, it happened in 2010 with the passage of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, which tied school meals and daycares and other institutional feeding directly to the dietary guidelines, which is a whole separate story. But it's all focused on low fat. And then in 2012, the USDA drilled down even further to not allow whole or 2% milk as a competing beverage, even if the students paid for it with their own money. So that's the stage. Um, Congressman G.T. Thompson from Pennsylvania, who is House Ag Committee Chair now, he has been introducing over the past 4 legislative sessions what's called the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act that would make it legal again. And this session, he actually went one step further to say that the milk, which is included in the meal, but the fat in the milk would not be counted in the meal because they have to keep the fat to the equivalent of a 80-year-old man's heart patient diet, okay, for growing children. So fast forward December 2023, the bill finally passed the House, 330 to 99, overwhelming bipartisan, and then was blocked in the Senate by the Ag Chairwoman, Debbie Stabenow from Michigan. So the good news is that G.T. Thompson has it in the House Farm Bill, which everyone said couldn't be done, but he got a waiver from the Education Committee chair who wants to see this done. And he also has reform of the dietary guidelines process in the Farm Bill. So we hope that that stays in. So the 97 milk effort, which is the whole milk for healthy kids, the grassroots effort, really started in 2018 in December when a dairy farmer, one county over from me, Berks County, Nelson Troutman, painted a round bale with the words "Drink whole milk, 97% fat free." So he put this, now when I say a round bale, have you seen the marshmallows out in the fields? They're plastic wrapped bales that turn the hay into like a silage to feed, and they're big. So he took his Rust-Oleum paint and he painted "Drink whole milk, 97% fat free." put it in a pasture by a crossroads. And this created a stir. People would stop him at the grocery store and like, I never knew that. I thought it was 15% or 50% fat, or some even said 100% fat. So within 2 weeks, I had done a cover story for Farm Shine with a picture of the bale, and I interviewed Nelson. And then 2 weeks after that, a group of farmers met to see what they could do to further this. And by February, they had formed an LLC, which is now a nonprofit. It's now a 501c3. But to get it done quick, they formed an LLC and decided to call it 97 Milk because when they looked up different domain names for the website, this was one that was available and it was catchy. So it's 97milk.com. And what they found is by putting that on the bales and other signage, Nelson himself has painted probably 100. They now can point people to a website where, people are like, hey, I didn't know that about milk. What else don't I know? What we found in the fight to get whole milk back in schools is that the biggest hurdle that we had to cross was for parents to actually realize that their kids did not have this choice. And most people just don't believe it. They don't really know the difference between whole milk and skim milk other than, it tastes better, but they don't realize that it's standardized to 3.25 to 3.5% fat. So next to 1% fat or 2% fat, you're getting that healthy fat. That's where the vitamin A is naturally, that helps with absorption of many, beneficial vitamins and minerals. And we've also seen the research show that, it helps with satiety. So, there's a positive there in terms of, childhood health. And the biggest thing was in Pennsylvania, we did do a trial. We found a school district with a food service director who joined our committee, and her school board left her do it. They threw caution to the wind and said, go ahead, offer whole and 2% milk for 1 year. We'll see if we can get away with it. What they found, and the student council measured this, was 95% reduction in waste and a 52% increase in the number of students taking milk. And this was at the junior and high school level. So it's huge. So I'm hopeful that these pieces will stay in the Farm Bill if they get negotiated out. I think that, we have to start all over again and just keep at it.
I think there's several important things in what you said. I agree that people just don't know that that whole milk is 97% fat free. And it's the difference between 0 or 1% fat and 3% fat, but it's in that 3% that all the vitamins and minerals and probiotics and amino acids, everything that kids need to grow strong bones and a healthy brain, literally a physically healthy brain, is in the fat in the milk. And it's appalling. It's enraging to me that it's against the law to serve whole milk. It's just appalling.
Yeah. Well, we hope to get it changed because if the kids aren't drinking the milk, then they're not getting the nutrition that we think they're getting. And milk has 3 of the 4 nutrients of public health concern that Americans don't get enough of, especially children. And so, there's a real agenda there to kind of push animal-based foods out of the diet. We're seeing that now with the current Dietary Guidelines Committee and their recommendations to USDA that were just finalized. Now the report's not finalized, but their recommendations are, and they are pushing more of a plant-based and less meat, less milk, less eggs. We're going the opposite direction. People need to eat animal foods and plant foods. If you don't want to, that's a personal choice, but don't force low fat that kids won't drink onto our children. They should have the choice. And this is all it's about, is choice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's even more than that. There's some beginning of some research that's showing when kids stop drinking milk at a young age, their bones aren't as strong. So there's issues around bone density and risk of fractures for not having whole milk or an equivalent protein, which is hard to get. It takes a lot of other stuff to equal what you find in an 8-ounce glass of milk. So there are real issues, and I think it was there are many, one of the dumbest decisions the U.S. Department of Agriculture made. It's appalling to me that you take that choice away from children who need what's
Mhm.
in that milk. And as you said, are throwing away the other milk. So if it's
Right.
in terms of waste,
Yeah.
it's important.
In terms of waste, and we're talking about a choice here, not making it mandatory that they drink whole milk. So it's, about choice. And then also, for farmers, it allows them, right now, it's set up that they can't promote the product they actually produce, which is whole milk. So they have a checkoff taken out of their milk check, which a checkoff is a mandatory fee for various commodities that was enabled by legislation and overseen by USDA, that they take a certain amount of money to promote, educate, and do research on that commodity. And so for dairy, it's 15 cents a hundredweight, which there's roughly almost 12 gallons of milk and 100 pounds of milk. So that money gets taken out and a board decides how to use it. But the checkoff signed a memorandum of understanding with USDA to advance the dietary guidelines. And so they hold all of their promotion and education to saying low fat and fat free dairy, low fat and fat, 3 a day, low fat and fat free, where farmers themselves are producing whole milk. So kids not only aren't having whole milk, they're not having real cheese, full fat cheese.
Yeah.
So there's a whole dynamic there from the farm side too, which explains the frustration that Mr. Nelson Troutman had when he decided to paint his bale because he couldn't afford a billboard.
There's a whole group in upstate New York. I live in the Adirondacks. There's a whole group in upstate New York that are also painting bales, and they're everywhere. Go
Yes.
upstate, western part of the state. The 97 milk, drink healthy milk, drink whole milk, hay bales covered in white and painted are everywhere.
Yes.
So as spreading, that message is spreading.
Ann Diefendorf from New York is the Nelson's counterpart. But yes, and 97milk.com is where you can go for information both on the legislation as well as just milk facts and a question desk if you have a question, a few videos with dietitians, just some good stuff.
Fabulous. Okay, so we're frustrated. Farmers are frustrated. What's really stands out, I've just done maybe 5 different county fairs this summer 2024. And first of all, like you said, people do not know that that whole milk is 97% fat free. People do not know that it's illegal against the law to serve whole milk in schools. And every kid that came by our stand where we were handing out whole milk and chocolate milk, um, said that they don't drink the milk in school.
Right.
So these are kids who grew up on farms or in farming communities or in smaller communities that have a lot of farms nearby. They know what good milk tastes like. They don't drink the milk in school. They only drink milk at home.
Right.
So, and then too many kids aren't even getting that.
Right. Exactly. And, we have to remember that, people say, oh, the dietary guidelines don't matter to me. I can choose. Well, yeah, mom can go to McDonald's and order the McCafe with the full fat, milk, the latte or whatever. But what do they put in the Happy Meal? Fat free chocolate milk. Because McDonald's wants to be in that same vein of, following the dietary guidelines. So, that's the underlying thing too that needs to be changed. We need to do a better job for our children and our farmers.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So my second question is with the recent hurricanes, especially Hurricane Helene in North Carolina, farmers have really been helping each other out. Farmers helping farmers to deliver hay, to deliver other food. What can you tell us about this whole network of farmers helping each other? I know you've written about it.
Yes. Well, some of it really kind of started out a few years ago with some of the fires out west. There's some organized efforts, some ag relief efforts that really mobilize as soon as there's a disaster to get hay and feed and other things, fencing materials. But in this case, with this particular hurricane that affected um, East Tennessee and Western North Carolina, we're not just seeing kind of those already in place organized efforts that are grassroots. We're also seeing just farmers getting together with their vendors to put together tractor trailer loads of not just hay, but feed and supplies across the country. Pennsylvania has done quite a few out of the northwest part of the state, the southeast, the central, and then Wisconsin, Michigan, even from other parts of North Carolina to the western part, from down from Kentucky. You see the convoys, you see the, Facebook posts looking for drivers. The thing that I want to impress upon people is that this is a long-term thing for those particular producers, because not only have they lost their fencing and some of them their facilities, their stored winter feed, but they've lost crops and pasture right down to the topsoil being washed away. So we're talking about an extended period of time in which feed is going to be needed for livestock and horses in the area, which includes dairy and beef, as well as goats and sheep. And, these are hillside and valley farms. And they're part of a vibrant rural agricultural uh, host of communities. And so what's really needed are volunteers, maybe just, people that want to go down for a weekend and help, put up fence and sort through things. But the Western North Carolina Regional Livestock Center has been sort of a focal point for some of these donations, and they've moved completely away from doing the food and needs for people for their homes, and move now they do coordinate like tiny homes and builders and things, but they're mostly just focusing on agricultural needs, and the biggest ones will be hay and feed and fencing materials.
And isn't it a shame that our federal U.S. Department of Agriculture doesn't know how to provide emergency support to small farmers?
What's really disturbing there is that we don't even have allocated funds from 2022 disasters. So I just read from American Farm Bureau estimated over $4 billion in past events, disasters, from fire to storms to hurricanes, um, before these recent hurricanes, which they haven't even been tallied yet, which will be in the billions. So, we really need a new farm bill. We need farm bill to get done in the lame duck session. We need the ad hoc assistance that goes with that. But honestly, these people would not be surviving, if volunteers were not helping them feed their animals. They would be, losing their farms basically at this point, because how do you continue if you cannot feed your animals? Yeah,
You don't continue. You can't continue.
right.
Um, I just wanted to add one thing to what you're saying about these communities of farmers, networks of farmers. I think government doesn't understand that there are networks out there.
Mhm.
You know, it's they're not just making a policy that relates to a few specific farms. They are impacting the entire nation's farmland and farmers with these decisions. And they're not good decisions. If the purpose of these Department of Agriculture is to support farmers, family farmers, I think the number is there used to be 660,000 in the 1970s, and I just wrote it down. There's 18,830 dairy farms left. So we have literally lost hundreds of thousands of dairy farms. And the market gets concentrated. So 4 or 5 big processors are controlling the cost of dairy, not the farmers.
Right. Right. And if you look at the billions that USDA is spending on climate smart projects, a lot of that money is going to administrative staff, both inside of USDA and by extension to the partners that they're partnering with that apply for the, that have been granted these projects. Very little of it is, and there should be an audit to see how much is getting to the farm level. But, again, if we have billions to do that, we certainly can take care of some of these disasters, because any farm that is able to continue to farm is not only good for our national security and to feed us, but also is good for the environment. Just the act of farming itself and grazing and all that goes with that is a more beneficial use of land and is a benefit to water quality. Most farms do cover crops and things like that. There's grazers that are involved that have lost, a lot there in Western North Carolina. Um, Overall, we need to reward farmers for the good that they're doing by being there for them when they need it. Yeah.
So that's kind of my last question. How can we help? What can consumers do? We all eat, we all go shopping. What can
So,
consumers do to help farmers?
well, the biggest thing that I would say is when you see the opportunity, seize the opportunity to buy local. We're all busy and, it's a lot easier to go to the supermarket. But even in the supermarket, I mean, milk, for example, is your most locally regional, fresh product that's available in a supermarket year round. If you're in Pennsylvania, the plant code for having been processed in Pennsylvania is 42. New York is 26. Um, I think you can go to Where's My Milk From and put the code in to find out exactly where. It's whereismymilkfrom.com. But the bottom line is, whether it's farmers markets, whether it's, seeking out what's available in your community to get, certain grocery items. And then when you're in the supermarket, just be aware of the labels and be aware of what's produced in the US. I know we don't have country of origin labeling for everything, and that's another topic. But just be aware. If you want to know, ask the manager of the store, where do you get your beef? That kind of thing. The other thing is to be policy aware when it comes to things like whole milk in school, for example. You know, maybe go and have lunch with your child at school and see, because for breakfast, they can have Pop Tarts, but they can't have whole milk. They can have at the middle and high school level Kickstart Mountain Dew, but they can't have whole milk, and start to question even at the local level, your school boards about this to help build a groundswell for change. But again, see the opportunity and seize the opportunity to buy local whenever you can.
Totally agree. Buy local whenever you can. Thank you so much, Sherry Bunting. And to our listeners, check out her articles at farmshine.net. This has been episode 6. Our next episode is going to look at issues related to meat and cattle ranching in America. Thank you so much, Sherry Bunting.
Thank you for having me.